20 years after the original anime adaptation, Shaman King Remake is finally upon us, and boy oh boy, I have been waiting for Yoh's return for such a long time. It's me, Gamerturk, and welcome to Gamerturk's Onsen. Let's talk about Shaman King 2021 Episode 1. And, is the remake running at 2 times the speed for everyone else as well? We're already breezing through the content so fast that when watching, I actually got confused at some point if I was watching an incomplete episode or something, thinking I was just being nostalgic about the original adaptation, remembering it longer than it was. But goddamn, they actually did breeze through content. That's actually not the best entry into the video, starting with a massive criticism, but I can't be the only one being thrown off by this. Not only did we get Hao's birth at the opening scene, which does kinda take away from a reveal that we were supposed to get like halfway into the entire series, which wasn't all that vital. I am not gonna dwell on that so much. But with the remaining 18-19 minutes or so, aside from the opening and ending sequences of course, we pretty much covered the first 2 episodes, the 40-something minutes of the original anime adaptation, When Yoh offered Amidamaru to tag along, he was like, yeah, I'll tag along, I guess, no questions asked. Sure, they did cover the Mosuke stuff beforehand, so Ryu did not have a rematch, so Amidamaru decided to stay back to save Yoh, etc. But goddamn, this amount of condensing, I certainly was caught off guard, I'll put it that way. But again, I probably should not have opened up with that. I certainly don't want to have a Shaman King explained series in my hand here, so I'll revert back to a more casual styled review. For starters, I absolutely do love the new art style we got here. Obviously, a certain upgrade comes from the fact that it's been, yes, 20 years since the original adaptation, animation technology has evolved, and there's a clear, more modern style than there was 20 years ago. But there's a clear art style shift as well that is not strictly from that time shift, those 20 years. And goddamn, while we did not yet get to see her aside from the opening sequence, I feel like the new art style absolutely benefited Anna the most. Just look at those absolutely ice cold stares. I love it, and I can't wait for her to appear. And considering the pace of the anime in this first episode, that's likely gonna be the next episode. But again, it's not just Anna. The best way I can describe the new art style is that everyone looks perfectly like how I remember them to look in my memories that went through multiple layers of rose-tinted glasses of nostalgia, which just goes on to say how well this new art style really captures all those characters and their quirks. Also, I just realized Ryu getting cut off from this shot in the opening, that's absolutely hilarious. But going into the actual anime portions, I ended up not having strong opinions about this episode aside from my confusion regarding the pacing and cuts. And I have to clarify, there's a reason I say pacing and cuts, because it's clear they try to include as much as possible, and it shows. All the dialogues are going so fast between the characters as everyone tries to respond to each other as quickly as possible to save time, and especially in these early episodes, that significantly comes at the expense of dramatic moments as well as comedic timing. And that's pretty much why I did not have any strong opinions regarding this episode. It was just a constant flow of exposition without any drama or comedy attached, unlike the original or the manga. Because, this portion of the story, it's the first episode. It's all about setting up the basic concepts of this world. It is by all means a full-on exposition episode here. Who's Morty, who's Yoh, who's Amidamaru, who's Mosuke, who's Ryu, what is a shaman. Those are the foundation blocks of the series that they do need to be shown and told to the viewer here in this very first episode. The manga, as well as the original anime, of course, answered these questions too, just like this one. But they had, comedic timing, or in the case of manga, you generate that comedic timing in your own head, but you get what I mean here. You have much more of an entertaining presentation that flows naturally when you have that comedic timing attached. Like, when Yoh acts like he doesn't recognize Manta, Manta takes a second before registering what the fuck he was hit with dramatic moments getting their dramatic pauses. You feel the weight of certain moments, like when Ryu destroys Amidamaru's tombstone. You realize that everybody knows it is absolutely fucked up. And that's why it felt like the entire episode was running at double speed to me. There was absolutely zero control of the entire narrative flow, as the anime tried to cram as much as they could into a time slot they did not have. Sadly, there's no right answer in such a circumstance either. You either have even more major cuts than there already is, which in such an episode would come at the expense of needed, exposition, or this is what they did, you do your best to establish the baseline as solidly as possible. Again, they chose the latter one, but the hand they were dealt with, I don't want to say this at all, especially since it's just been episode 1, and as a massive Shaman King fan myself, I absolutely do want to see more of this, whether the pacing remains so weird or not, regardless of how much will be cut in the future, because we all know 52 episodes to not cover the 64 episodes of the original anime, but rather the much longer complete manga. They're gonna adapt the entire manga in 52 episodes. If I was part of the anime staff and I was dealt that specific hand, I'd probably choose to fold rather than deal with the stress of having to accomplish that, Although, credit where credit is due, they did do a neat job with the little action sequence that was in this episode, adding Yoh rotating around to the side a bit to avoid the downwards trajectory of Ryu's sword rather than just going straight like there was no danger in the original. It really adds a neat little flair and care on Amidamaru's side to guarantee avoiding the sword for Yoh's sake. But yeah, if I am to be honest, which I have to be in reviews, I probably would not have strong opinions about this episode 1, even if it was perfectly adapted anyways. It's the setup episode, it's the exposition episode, and I really don't like Manta as a character anyways, and this was his episode to give us an entry point into the world of shamans featuring rudimentary information that we need to have to follow along with the plot. It'll only get better next week when Tao Ren and hopefully Anna getting introduced into the mix as well, although it will only reach a satisfactory level for me when Ryu and Faust start getting more involved as well. That main trio of characters I am looking forward to the most. Overall, quite bad pacing that made the initial setup episode a little bit more frantic than it needed to be, but also ended up speeding up a lot of this rudimentary information flow to get us faster into the upcoming action episodes. And of course, Yoko Hikasa as Asakura Yoh is doing an absolutely phenomenal job, and I absolutely love it. I just hope in the future episodes the pacing gets at least slightly better, so Yoh's carefree attitude manages to elevate the comedic scenes a bit higher. Like in the original, one of my favorite scenes that was supposed to be in this episode was Ryu coming back for a revenge when Amidamaru was going to Afterlife, abandoning Yoh, which obviously was cut here as I was talking about at the beginning. Mori just goes crazy that Ryu is back to hunt them, whereas Yoh is like, "Yo, how you doing?" That kind of friendly and carefree attitude in front of such danger, it creates such a nice juxtaposition with all the other characters that really makes Yoh's character so charming for me. But yeah, even if the pacing remains frantic like this, at least getting to Yoh-focused episodes will bring in some of that carefree magic, and I'm looking forward to that. Sorry for having a shorter review for Shaman King episode 1, it's just that, aside from the fact that I'm a bit late with my schedule, I genuinely did not have much to say about the contents of this early introductory portion of the series, and it sure did not help that it was basically 2 episodes worth of content being crammed into one, so I will be looking forward to seeing you all next week when Tao Ren makes his proper debut. Thanks for watching, make sure to subscribe for more Shaman King content, and I'll see you next time. Until then, stay cool.